All right, so you weren't kidding when you said you wanted to go down a rabbit hole this time.
Yeah.
Adrenochrome, Diddy's downfall, and a whole lot of internet speculation.
Hmm.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
We've got a Rumble video from the People's Voice,
Okay.
which, if you don't know, is known for promoting conspiracy theories,
Right.
a multi-part YouTube deep dive series, and then some other videos focusing on some pretty heavy allegations against Sean Diddy Combs.
It is quite a mix, and I think what makes it even more fascinating is that it's not just your typical celebrity gossip.
Right.
This deep dive touches on some pretty dark themes like trafficking abuse and the power dynamics that are at play in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about how information spreads online,
Yeah.
especially around these high-profile figures, and how tricky it can be to sort out fact from fiction.
Exactly, and that's why we're here.
Right.
We're going to break down these sources,
Yeah.
help you understand what they're actually claiming and what kind of evidence they're using. We're not here to endorse any particular viewpoint,
Right.
just to lay it all out for you.
Think of us as guides
Yeah.
through this information jungle.
Okay?
We'll point out the interesting landmarks, the potential pitfalls,
Yeah.
and hopefully help you navigate it all without getting lost in the weeds.
Okay, so let's start with this adrenochrome claim.
Okay.
This Rumble video from the People's Voice throws out a pretty wild accusation. They claim to have an LAPD source who told them that a secret pharmacy in Hollywood is selling adrenochrome pills to elites
Okay.
who believe they'll get health benefits and special powers from it.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The video claims that these supposed benefits
Right.
come from the suffering of children.
What?
Yeah, this is where we start to see how this specific claim connects to a much wider and frankly disturbing
Oh, wow.
conspiracy theory that's been circulating online for years.
Okay, so before we go any further,
Yeah.
I think we need to back up and explain what adrenochrome actually is.
Absolutely. In reality, adrenochrome is simply a chemical compound. It's a byproduct of adrenaline oxidation.
Okay.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Right.
It's definitely not some magical elixir or a fountain of youth, despite what these conspiracy theories suggest.
Right.
And the truly important thing, remember here, is that there's zero scientific evidence to back up any of these claims about its supposed effects.
See, this is what I love about these deep dives.
Yeah.
We can take something that sounds totally outlandish, like a secret Hollywood pharmacy selling pills made from...
Right.
Well, we won't go there.
Yeah.
And actually break it down, understand what's real and what's not.
Exactly. And this particular video is a perfect example of how these theories
Right.
often prey on people's anxieties and fears. The language they use is very deliberate. They talk about old school Satanism and elites who think they're untouchable. It's all designed to create a sense of fear and outrage.
And it's easy to see how people could get drawn into that, especially when it plays into this idea of a hidden, powerful group controlling everything from the shadows.
Right, and that's a common thread in a lot of conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
It's important to always ask yourself, how is this source presenting its information?
Right.
What kind of language are they using?
Right.
And what evidence, if any, are they providing?
Okay, so we've got this wild claim about adrenochrome
Right.
and a website that seems to be pushing a particular agenda.
Yes.
What should we be thinking about as we move into the Diddy allegations?
Well, I think the adrenochrome example is a perfect illustration of why it's crucial to apply critical thinking to everything we encounter online.
Okay.
We need to be aware of the potential biases of our sources and carefully evaluate the evidence they present. Just because someone makes a claim, even if it sounds shocking or intriguing, doesn't mean it's true.
Okay, that's a good point to keep in mind. Now let's move on to Diddy.
Okay.
These YouTube videos really dig into some serious accusations against him. They're referencing court documents from his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. But there were other claims being made as well.
Right. And right off the bat, it's crucial to acknowledge that Diddy maintains his innocence.
Okay.
He has not been convicted of any of these charges.
Right.
And it's important for us to present this information responsibly.
Right.
We're looking at allegations.
Got it.
And we need to be mindful of that as we go through these sources.
Focusing on the allegations themselves.
Yes.
And what the sources are claiming.
Right.
So starting with Cassie's lawsuit.
Okay.
She's alleging Diddy physically and emotionally abused her
Yes.
during their 10-year relationship.
And it wasn't just a few isolated incidents, according to the lawsuit.
Okay.
Cassie is claiming that Diddy's abuse was a pattern of behavior that continued throughout their relationship.
And we're talking about some pretty specific accusations here.
Yes.
Beatings, controlling behavior. And she even says he forced her to participate in what they call freak-offs.
Yes, and this is an important term to define because it might not be something everyone is familiar with.
Right.
According to the sources, these alleged freak-offs were essentially organized sexual encounters involving multiple people.
Right.
And Cassie says she was coerced and forced to participate against her will while Diddy watched.
Wow.
So it's not just about partying.
Right.
It's about a serious allegation of coercion and abuse.
Now, there are some incredibly disturbing details that come up in these sources.
Okay.
Details that definitely grabbed my attention. Like during a Homeland Security raid on Diddy's mansion, they apparently found 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people have been asking.
What on earth was going on there?
It's certainly a bizarre detail, and you can see why it would fuel speculation. Some of the sources we looked at suggest it could be evidence of trafficking or some kind of organized sexual activity.
Right.
But, and this is really important, we need to avoid jumping to conclusions. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And without more context, it's impossible to say for sure what it means.
It really shows how one detail, even if it's not directly related, can take on a life of its own online.
Yeah.
And contribute to a much bigger narrative.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we always need to question what evidence actually supports a claim.
Right.
And be wary of speculation disguised as fact.
Okay, so besides the baby oil, there's also a lot of talk about these white parties that Diddy was known for throwing. Apparently they were notorious for drug use.
Right.
And had this culture of silence surrounding Diddy's behavior.
Again, it's essential to remember that these are allegations.
Right.
And we need to avoid perpetuating rumors without evidence.
Of course.
But what's really crucial here is understanding the power dynamics that might have been at play.
Okay.
Diddy was and still is a hugely powerful figure in the music industry.
Right.
That kind of power can create an environment where people are afraid to speak out, even if they've witnessed or experienced something wrong.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, this power dynamic isn't unique to Hollywood.
Right.
We see it in all sorts of industries and institutions.
That's right. It's a societal issue that goes far beyond the entertainment world.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it's important to consider how that power dynamic might have contributed to the alleged culture of silence surrounding Diddy's behavior.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a lot more to unpack here with these Diddy allegations. We've got some shocking claims from Cassie's lawsuit. Some bizarre details like the baby oil. And then this larger question of power dynamics in the music industry.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
I think the next step is to dive deeper into these allegations and examine the evidence that's being presented.
Right.
What specifically is Cassie alleging? What other lawsuits are out there and what do they claim? And how is Diddy responding to all of this? There are a lot of layers to this story, and it's important to explore each one carefully.
All right, you heard it here first. We're going deep on this one, so buckle up and get ready for part 2. Okay, so we're back, and we're digging deeper into these Diddy allegations.
Okay.
We left off talking about the power dynamics in the music industry.
Right.
And how that might have played a role in the alleged culture of silence around Diddy. So what else are these sources telling us about the allegations themselves?
Well, one of the things that really struck me was the hotel surveillance footage of Diddy allegedly assaulting Cassie.
Right.
This wasn't just a rumor or hearsay. It was a video that went viral.
Right.
Sparking outrage and really pushing this story into the public eye.
Right. I remember seeing that footage. It was pretty hard to watch.
Yeah.
And it definitely made it much harder to dismiss Cassie's claims.
Right.
But before we go any further, I think it's important to emphasize again that Diddy has denied all these allegations.
Absolutely.
He's maintaining his innocence.
Right.
And hasn't been convicted of anything.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
And speaking of legal processes, let's take a minute to talk about what that actually means.
Okay.
In a situation like this, where there are serious allegations being made, the legal system has to step in to determine what actually happened and whether any laws were broken.
Okay, so walk us through that. How does this all work?
Well, in simple terms, when someone files a lawsuit like Cassie did, they are making a legal claim against another person. In this case, Cassie is alleging that Diddy harmed her through his actions. Now, the burden of proof
Right.
falls on the person making the accusation.
Right.
Which means Cassie and her legal team
Yeah.
have to present evidence that supports her claims.
Okay.
This evidence could include things like witness testimony, medical records, photos, or videos,
Right.
like the hotel surveillance footage we just mentioned.
So they have to prove that their claims are true.
Exactly.
And Diddy and his legal team will try to refute those claims.
Right.
It's like a legal tug of war.
Exactly. And as part of his defense,
Okay.
Diddy's lawyers are denying everything.
Right.
They're saying he never assaulted Cassie
Okay.
and that the lawsuit is baseless.
Right.
In these kinds of cases, defense attorneys will often try to discredit the accuser, maybe portraying them as unreliable or suggesting they have ulterior motives for making the accusations.
It's interesting to think about the legal strategies that come into play in a case like this.
Right.
We're not lawyers.
Right.
But it's fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
I agree. And while Cassie's lawsuit is certainly the centerpiece of these allegations, the sources we looked at also mention other lawsuits against Diddy that seem to follow a similar pattern.
Okay, so let's talk about those.
Right.
What are these other lawsuits claiming?
One lawsuit that stands out is from Dawn Richard, a former member of Diddy Kane. Right.
A girl group Diddy managed.
Okay.
Her claims mirror Cassie's experiences in many ways.
So similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
She alleges she saw Diddy physically assault Cassie multiple times.
Wow.
And that he even threatened her when she tried to intervene.
Wait, he threatened her for trying to stop him from hurting Cassie?
Yeah.
That's pretty messed up.
It's a serious accusation.
Right.
And it adds another layer of complexity to this whole story.
Right.
If true, it paints a picture of a man who was not only allegedly abusive, but also potentially controlling and intimidating towards those who tried to question his behavior.
It definitely makes you wonder how many other people might have witnessed this behavior, but were afraid to speak up.
And that fear is understandable,
Right.
especially given Diddy's power and influence in the industry. One source, a former employee, described working for Diddy as being ready to catch a brick.
Ready to catch a brick. What does that even mean?
It basically means living in a constant state of anxiety and fear.
Right. Never knowing when you might end up on Diddy's bad side. The source claimed that Diddy was unpredictable.
Okay.
And that the consequences of displeasing him could be severe.
That description really paints a picture of a toxic and volatile work environment.
Right.
It sounds incredibly stressful.
It does.
And it makes you question the kind of culture that was being fostered within his company.
Absolutely. And it's a stark reminder that behind the glamorous facade of fame and fortune, there can be a dark underbelly of abuse and exploitation.
Okay, so we've got Cassie's lawsuit, Dawn Richards' claims, and this overall picture of a potentially intimidating work environment. Are there any other lawsuits or accusations that stand out?
Yes. There's another lawsuit from a woman named Liza Gardner, who claims she and a friend were assaulted by Diddy and another R&B singer, Aaron Hall, at a party. She alleges they were given drinks and then coerced into having sex with both men.
This Aaron Hall guy.
Right.
I'm not familiar with him.
Okay.
What's his deal?
Well, according to the sources we looked at, he's had his own share of controversies over the years. In fact, there's a resurfaced interview that's been making the rounds online where he pretty much brags about being a pimp.
Oh, wow.
And admits to hitting women.
Seriously?
Yeah.
He just admits to that on camera.
It's pretty shocking.
Wow.
And what's even more disturbing is how nonchalantly he talks about it.
Yeah.
Almost like it's something to be proud of.
Right.
It really highlights how deeply ingrained these misogynistic attitudes can be.
It's chilling to think that this interview exists and that this guy was allegedly friends with Diddy and associated with him professionally.
Right.
It definitely raises some red flags.
It certainly calls into question Diddy's judgment and the company he kept.
Yeah.
And it underscores a point we made earlier about power dynamics. If these allegations are true, it suggests that both Diddy and Hall might have used their fame and influence to manipulate women into situations where they felt powerless to say no.
It's a really disturbing thought.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about several different accusations and lawsuits, and it's clear that there are a lot of serious claims being made against Diddy.
Yeah.
But what about the other side of the story?
Right.
What are Diddy and his lawyers saying in response to all of this?
Well, as we mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
Diddy has consistently denied all of the allegations.
Okay.
His lawyers are claiming that the lawsuits are nothing more than a shakedown,
No.
an attempt to extort money from a wealthy and successful man.
So they're saying all these accusers are lying.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And they're specifically targeting the hotel surveillance footage,
Okay.
arguing that it was an isolated incident,
Right.
a moment of passion fueled by love, hurt, and heartbreak.
Okay.
They're trying to frame it as a personal matter
Mhm.
between two people in a tumultuous relationship rather than a pattern of abusive behavior.
That seems like a pretty tough sell,
It does.
considering there are multiple accusers
Right.
describing similar experiences.
Exactly.
It doesn't sound very convincing to me.
You're not alone in that assessment.
Okay.
A lot of legal analysts have pointed out
Mhm.
the difficulties Diddy's legal team is facing.
Yeah.
They have to convince a jury that all these accusers are lying
Right.
or that their accounts are somehow misconstrued.
Yeah.
And with video evidence, like the hotel footage,
Right.
that's going to be a very difficult argument to make.
Right. It's not just hearsay.
Exactly.
There's actual visual proof of an altercation.
Right.
So what's the latest in terms of the legal proceedings? Where does everything stand right now?
Well, according to the sources we looked at,
Yeah.
Diddy was actually taken into custody pending trial.
He's in jail right now?
Yes, he was denied bail initially.
Wow.
His lawyers have been trying to secure his release,
Mhm.
even offering a substantial bail package. That included his Miami mansion as collateral,
Wow.
along with strict conditions like house arrest GPS monitoring and a pre-approved list of visitors.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're pulling out all the stops to get him out.
They certainly are,
Yeah.
but the prosecutors have been pushing back hard,
Right.
arguing that he should remain detained
Okay.
due to the seriousness of the charges and the risk that he might try to influence witnesses
Right.
or obstruct justice if released.
So it's a battle of legal strategies.
It is.
His lawyers are trying to get him out,
Right.
while the prosecutors want to keep him in custody.
Right.
It makes you think about how money and power
Yeah,
can impact the justice system, doesn't it?
absolutely. It's a fascinating and complex issue.
Right.
Does wealth give someone an unfair advantage in the legal system?
Yeah.
Does it allow them to access better legal representation
Right.
or exert influence that others might not have?
Right.
These are questions that are being debated right now.
Right.
In Diddy's case and in many other high-profile cases.
It's definitely something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens next? What's the likely outcome of all this?
Well, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
If Diddy is ultimately convicted on the trafficking charges,
Right.
he's facing a potential life sentence.
Wow.
But even if he's acquitted of all charges,
Right.
the damage to his reputation and career
Yeah.
is likely to be significant.
It's hard to imagine him bouncing back from this,
Yeah,
regardless of the legal outcome.
right.
This whole situation is a mess,
It is.
and it doesn't seem like there are any easy answers
Right.
or happy endings in sight.
You're right. And in the meantime,
Yeah.
the media frenzy surrounding this case
Yeah.
is unlikely to die down anytime soon.
Yeah.
People are fascinated by these kinds of stories,
Right.
especially when they involve wealth, power,
Yeah.
and allegations of wrongdoing.
Okay, so we've talked about the accusations,
Yeah.
the lawsuits,
Mm-hmm.
and the legal battle that's unfolding. But there's another element to this story
Okay.
that's been circulating online
Right.
and causing quite a stir,
Mm-hmm.
the so-called Diddy list.
Ah, yes, the infamous Diddy list.
Okay.
This is where things get even murkier
Okay.
and potentially more dangerous.
Fill us in. What is this Diddy list all about?
Essentially, it's a list of celebrities
Okay.
that some people online are claiming were either involved in Diddy's alleged crimes
Right.
or were themselves victims of his abuse.
Okay.
It's been spreading like wildfire on social media,
Yeah.
and people are having a field day speculating about who's on it
Yeah.
and what it all means.
So it's basically a list of people who are allegedly connected to Diddy in some nefarious way.
Exactly. But here's the crucial part.
Okay.
This list has absolutely no official basis.
Oh, really?
It's pure speculation fueled by rumors and conjecture online.
Hmm.
No law enforcement agency has released any such list
Okay.
or confirmed they are investigating anyone on it.
So it's just internet gossip, essentially.
Yeah,
But I'm guessing that hasn't stopped people from taking it seriously.
you guessed right. Unfortunately, in the age of social media,
Yeah.
it's all too easy for misinformation to spread and for rumors to take on a life of their own.
Right.
And that's why we need to be incredibly cautious
Yes.
about accepting any of this Diddy list stuff as fact.
Got it.
Just because someone's name appears on a list online doesn't mean they've done anything wrong.
It's a good reminder that we can't believe everything we read online.
Right.
So who are some of the people who've been caught up in this Diddy list speculation?
Well, the names run the gamut.
Okay.
From A-list actors and musicians to models and even talk show hosts.
Oh, wow.
We've already talked about Ashton Kutcher, Usher, and Naomi Campbell.
Yeah.
But there are many others.
Okay.
Including Paris Hilton, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Ellen DeGeneres, Kevin Hart, and even Oprah Winfrey.
Wow, that's a pretty diverse group of people. What's the common thread? Why are people connecting them to Diddy in this way?
It really varies depending on the individual.
Okay.
Sometimes it's based on a past association with Diddy.
Okay.
Maybe they were seen partying together or collaborated on a project.
Right.
Other times it's based on the flimsiest of connections.
Okay.
Like a vague comment they made in an interview.
Right.
Or even just the fact that they haven't publicly denounced Diddy.
It's mind-boggling how people can draw these connections.
It is.
And create these elaborate narratives based on the smallest bits of information.
It really is. And it speaks to our human tendency to look for patterns and try to make sense of chaos.
Right.
But in a situation like this, where there's so much uncertainty and so many unanswered questions, it's easy for that desire for understanding to lead us down the wrong path into the realm of unfounded speculation and conspiracy theories.
It's like a giant game of connect the dots, but instead of a cute picture, we end up with this web of accusations and innuendo.
That's a great way to put it. And we have to remember that at the end of the day, these are real people's lives we're talking about. Accusing someone of serious crimes without evidence can have devastating consequences for their reputation and their career.
So as we move forward with this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
We're dealing with sensitive information and serious allegations.
Right.
And we need to approach it all with a healthy dose of skepticism and caution.
I couldn't agree more. We're going to delve deeper into some of the specific claims being made about individuals on this so-called Diddy list.
Okay.
And we'll examine the evidence or lack thereof that's being presented.
Okay.
But we'll do it responsibly, carefully, and with a critical eye.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Right.
Let's take a break here. And when we come back, we'll unpack some of the more intriguing names that have been swirling around this Diddy list. All right. So we're back and ready to dive into this Diddy list.
Okay.
Which, as we've established, is basically just a product of internet speculation.
Right.
Not an actual thing.
Yeah.
But it's still fascinating to look at how and why certain names have gotten caught up in all of this.
It is.
So where do we even start?
Well, I think it's interesting to look at how this Diddy list has expanded beyond just alleged accomplices or victims of abuse.
Okay.
It's also brought up questions about Diddy's business practices and how he's treated artists on his record label.
Right. There's been a lot of talk online about Mace, a rapper who was signed to Diddy's Bad Boy label back in the day.
Right.
He's been pretty vocal about his issues with Diddy.
Yeah, and Mace's accusations are significant because they tap into a larger conversation about the ethics of the music industry as a whole.
Okay.
He's accusing Diddy of exploiting artists, profiting off their talent while leaving them financially struggling.
That's a pretty serious accusation. Is there any truth to it?
It's tough to say for sure without seeing the contracts and financial records.
Right.
But Mace isn't alone in making these claims.
Okay.
A lot of artists who were signed to Bad Boy back in the 90s have come forward with similar stories.
Okay.
Claiming they were taken advantage of and never saw their fair share of the profits.
If that's true, it paints a pretty bleak picture of the industry.
It does.
It's supposed to be about creating art and sharing music, but it sounds like it can be a very cutthroat business, especially for young artists who are just starting out.
You're absolutely right. It's a classic tale of power imbalance.
Right.
You have these young, talented individuals who are desperate to break into the industry, and they're often willing to sign anything just to get their foot in the door.
Right.
Then you have these powerful figures like Diddy who, according to these allegations, are more concerned with profits than with the well-being of their artists.
And it's especially ironic.
It is.
When you consider Diddy's very public criticism of the Grammy Awards a few years back.
Right.
He was calling them out for not giving enough recognition to black artists, which is a valid point.
Yes.
But it's hard to take him seriously when he's being accused of exploiting those same artists
Right.
within his own label.
That's the hypocrisy that a lot of people are pointing out.
Yeah.
He's criticizing the industry for systemic bias while at the same time being accused of perpetuating similar practices within his own company.
Right.
It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of his former fans and supporters.
Okay, so we've got these accusations from Mays and other artists about shady business practices. And then there's this whole thing about Diddy giving back publishing rights to his artists.
Right.
At first glance, it seemed like a generous move.
Yeah.
But the sources we looked at suggest there might have been more to it than met the eye.
Right. The timing of that decision is definitely interesting.
Okay.
It came just a few months before Cassie filed her lawsuit, which led some to speculate that Diddy was trying to do some damage control, get ahead of the negative publicity, and present himself as a benevolent figure.
It's like he was trying to polish his image before the storm hit.
Right.
But did it work? Did people buy it?
Well, it's hard to say for sure. Some people were definitely skeptical.
Okay.
Especially when rumors started circulating that the artists who accepted the publishing rights were allegedly required to sign non-disclosure agreements.
What? So they couldn't talk about their experiences with Diddy or Bad Boy?
Right.
That sounds pretty suspicious.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If that's true, it suggests that this whole generous gesture might have been more about silencing potential critics than about actual altruism.
Okay, so we've got shady business practices, accusations of exploitation, and then this potentially manipulative move with the publishing rights. Is there anything else about Diddy's professional life that has come up in all of this?
Well, one of the sources we looked at focused on the experiences of Rodney Darkchild Jerkins.
Oh, wow, Darkchild.
Yeah.
He's a legend.
He is.
What did he have to say about Diddy?
Well, let's just say he didn't hold back.
Okay.
He described Diddy as a monster.
Oh, wow.
And accused him of stealing credit for his work. He also alleged that Diddy would pressure artists to use his in-house producers, even if they preferred to work with someone else.
It sounds like there was a lot of resentment and bad blood there.
There definitely seems to be.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that theme of power and control.
Right.
According to Jerkins, Diddy wanted to keep everything within his own empire.
Okay.
Even if it meant stifling the creativity of the artists he was working with.
So it wasn't just about the money, it was about ego.
Right.
And wanting to call all the shots. That's disappointing to say the least.
I think that's a fair assessment. It's sad to see how someone with so much talent and influence could allegedly use it in such a way.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We started with this wild adrenochrome conspiracy theory, then moved on to the serious allegations against Diddy.
Right.
And now we've explored some of the accusations about his business practices and the way he treated artists on his label. It's been a wild ride, and it's honestly pretty disheartening to think about all of this.
I understand what you mean. It can be disillusioning to see someone you admired fall from grace in such a spectacular way.
Right.
And it's especially challenging when you're trying to make sense of it all, sift through the rumors and speculation, and figure out what to believe.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
What are the key takeaways for our listeners who've been following along on this deep dive?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that this is a complex situation with no easy answers.
Right.
There are multiple perspectives to consider.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately up to each individual to form their own conclusions based on the available evidence.
But as we've discussed throughout this deep dive, it's crucial to approach this information with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to anything circulating online.
Right.
Be wary of sensationalized headlines, unverified sources, and claims without evidence.
Exactly. And be mindful of the potential biases that might be influencing your perceptions.
Right.
Ask yourself, what are my preconceived notions about Diddy?
Right.
Am I more inclined to believe or disbelieve these accusations based on my previous opinions of him?
Those are really good points.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the drama and the gossip.
Right.
And forget to step back and think critically about what we're consuming.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And remember, the legal process is still ongoing, so it's important to avoid rushing to judgment. Diddy, like anyone else accused of a crime, deserves a fair trial.
Of course.
And the presumption of innocence until proven guilty.
And in the meantime, we'll continue to follow this story as it unfolds, separate the facts from the fiction, and keep you informed along the way.
That's right. We encourage you to continue exploring sources we've discussed, do your own research, and most importantly, think for yourself.
This deep dive has been a journey, but I think we've managed to shed some light on a very complicated situation, and hopefully you feel a bit more equipped to navigate the murky waters of online information and form your own conclusions. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into, well, who knows which will send our way.